All the recent headlines about Chinese spy balloons getting shot down brings to mind a battalion of black paratroopers whose secret mission was to defend America's Northwest from Japanese balloon bombs during World War II. They were known as the Triple Nickles. Hear one daughter's personal story and meet the brother who's making sure our black veterans are not forgotten.
I never heard anything about the Triple Nickles when I was a young girl.
A mystery and a promise brought Alice Morris to meet Charles Blatcher at the African American Museum in Oakland. Blatcher is chairman of the Coalition of Black Veteran Organizations. Alice's father is Dr. Walter Herbert Morris, and Blatcher may be able to help Alice unravel a mysterious mission her father didn't talk about for decades. The 555th Battalion, otherwise known as the Triple Nickles.
And it wasn't until, maybe 20 years ago, when he began talking about his time in Oregon.
The Triple Nickel was made up of men that served in the 92nd Division. They were stationed at Fort Huachuca. When they were looking for volunteers, black volunteers, the guys that went to Triple Nickel all volunteered. Then they sent them to Benning. They went to Benning to jump school. I think at the time, the country did not want the citizens really to be aware that the Japanese were dropping incendiary bombs on the West Coast. That's why they were sent to the West Coast as firefighters. But that's what they did during the war, from 44 to 45. They were up in Oregon, they were out here on the West Coast fighting fires in California, Oregon, and Idaho.
And no one really knew anything about it.
I can tell you a story about the Triple Nickel that was told to me. I don't know if this is true or not, because you know when you get old soldiers together,
right,
a fish this big gets to be this big. They told me about a guy by the name of Ransom Hope. Said they were on their way to the aircraft to do a practice jump. Ransom found a pocket knife laying on the tarmac, picked it up and put it in his pocket. When they jumped out the plane, his shroud lines on his parachute got caught in the tail section of the aircraft. So he was dangling behind the aircraft.
Oh, wow.
He got to his pocket and pulled out the knife that he had found and freed himself from the plane. He jumped out of the plane in Georgia and he landed in Alabama.
Blatcher knows all about the Triple Nickles and is a walking encyclopedia of military history. He's worked to ensure that legions of black men and women who served and fought for this nation are awarded the medals and honors they deserve but were denied. His journey began with a promise to the last veteran of the Spanish-American War, Sergeant Samuel Walker, back in 1978. Perhaps around the time that this photo of Blatcher was taken, that we found in the museum archives.
Right here.
In the center, yeah.
That's Major General John Stanford. He was the only black commanding officer of the Oakland Army Base in its history.
History seems to follow Blatcher. As for the promise, Sam asked him to get Buffalo soldier Colonel Charles Young promoted to Brigadier General. It took 41 years, but he made it happen.
Sam is looking at me right now. He gave me a job that has consumed my life.
You kept your promise.
Well, it made me a better person because he gave me a purpose and a direction with my life. And I appreciated that. And the more I worked on researching, the more I understood the void in American history about what we had actually contributed to this nation. I happened to make a trip over to England years ago to the Imperial War Museum. I found photographs in their collection that I have never seen here in the United States. I did research at the National Archives here in Washington. The photographs I found in London were not even in our National Archives. I asked how did they come across getting all of the pictures. They said at the end of World War II, the Army was going to destroy the photographs. They weren't going to bring them back to the States. And the government of England said that they would take them, and they took them and they archived them. But it was all about not wanting to give the public the true story about who was participating in the war. And that's one of our concerns about our own people not understanding the value of the history, because the history is the cornerstone of our claim to civil rights. Many people don't understand that every concession that has been made to us as a people in this country has come about as a result of our contributions in war. Frederick Douglass called black men to come to arms when the Civil War started. And his motto was, strike a blow for freedom. It wasn't about anything other than the fact of saying, if we can fight and die for this country, no one can deny us the right of citizenship. And that has been the principle of civil rights from the Civil War right on forward. All the concessions that were made during World War II came about as a result of black men and women serving in the United States Armed Forces during that period of time. And the Triple Nickel, who came around during World War II, was one of many firsts that came around through that era. You know, during that era, we had our first black pilots, we had our first black tankers, we had our first black paratroopers.
And what does Blatcher say to those who insist these men died in vain?
Contrary to how others feel about us, we need to make that service stand for something. That service entitles us. We should never walk away from that. That's our history. But it's our responsibility not to let that be forgotten. It's a very important part of Black history. It's a very important part of American history.
A very special thanks to the African American Museum and Library in Oakland for letting us shoot our segment there. They have such an amazing collection. You don't want to miss it. For more information, visit oaklandlibrary.org.